Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Bear podcast. I'm Shelby Coughlin, the owner and founder of Beautifully Bear. I'm so excited to be here with you ladies today, and I'm joined by my special guest, the one and only Melanie Matheny, who happens to be my mom. How are you?
I'm great.
Are you so excited to be here?
I am excited. A little nervous, but excited.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on today. We're going to be covering generational sexuality, and I thought who better to ask to do this with than my own mom, considering we're clearly from different generations. And that way we can kind of shed some light on what it may look like for other people in your life and what they've gone through and what their experience looks like just by being born in a different generation. So, my mom actually just had her first boudoir session done on Monday. How do you feel?
I was like really nervous when we got there, and I've never had someone do my makeup before, so that was very different. But Shelby Kroll did an amazing job. I had no idea that I could look like that.
Yeah, that's how I feel every time she does my makeup. I'm like, wow,
She
who
did
is she?
amazing. I felt 20 years younger when she was finished with me, and I'm like,
Aw.
I wish she'd come to my house and do my makeup every day.
I mean, the price is right.
Right, right.
But I'm so glad you did it, and I feel like it's such a freeing experience. I know you haven't gotten your photos back yet. Are you nervous for that part of the process?
I'm not really nervous for that part because I feel like, and I may be biased, but I feel like you're an amazing photographer. And it was a little awkward at first because you are my daughter. And the way that I grew up, you didn't walk around naked and you weren't naked around, the family. So I've never been kind of vulnerable like that before with you. And so it was a little awkward at first, but we quickly made it over that hump and it was amazing. I felt very comfortable. And you're just such a great hype person.
Thank you. Thank you. I do my best. Well, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Is that something that you feel like you would have been able to do when you were in your earlier years, 20s, 30s?
That was so long ago. We didn't even have video equipment back then.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But probably not. I've always been very self-conscious. Um, so probably not something I would have felt really comfortable with. Um, so I want to encourage anyone that's older, even younger as well, but anyone that's in my age bracket, which I'm not going to tell you how old that is, um, do it. If my thought with it was, I want to lose 20 more pounds. I want to feel a certain kind of way about myself.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, things can change in a heartbeat. You could be in a terrible accident or something and be disfigured. Your weight fluctuates. So don't put it off. Do the shoot. It's amazing, and it's amazing memories that you create for yourself. And my husband cannot wait to see these pictures.
I know he's so excited. I also just feel like once you're in there, like that fear starts to drop off, which is such like an amazing thing too. And then just the confidence that you gain from going through that is just amazing all in and of itself.
Absolutely.
Truly. And I feel like so many people have come to me and said, well, when I lose this much weight, I'm going to do the shoot. Or when I do this, I'm going to do the shoot. Or I have some people that are like, well, I got to get my mommy makeover before I do the shoot. And I strongly urge them to do it before they lose the weight, get the surgery, do whatever it is that's holding them back. Because I feel that when we hold ourselves back, we're really just denying ourselves, honestly. Like, there is no reason to not love the body that you're in right now, because if you don't love the body that you're in right now, right in this moment, then you're not going to love the body when it changes in 3 to 6 months. That really, that core belief system starts within our own heads. It doesn't have a ton to really do with what we look like, honestly. I mean, I have clients who I've seen and I thought, oh, there's no way she has an ounce of self-esteem issues. And then I get up there and I start talking to her and I'm like, oh my God, we're literally all the same. Like every single client, even myself included, struggles with that?
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's such a topic that has been just silenced for so long amongst women, like, oh, you're supposed to look a certain way. I mean, we were just having this talk the other day about Barbies and how Barbies have changed from when you were a kid to how Millie is now, where they have different Barbies. They have bigger Barbies, smaller Barbies, Barbies with no legs, like they have Barbies that really resemble your average woman now and just women in general in America, because not everybody is a size, 0 with the perfect boobs and the
Absolutely.
perfect butt and, whatever society has deemed perfect and normal. And I feel like that really probably shaped a lot of people in your generation as well, just growing up and seeing that, would you say?
Absolutely. And a fun fact, I saw yesterday that Mattel has came out with the Down syndrome Barbie, which that's awesome. I think that's amazing that they're doing that,
Yeah,
and they
that's
should have done it
incredible.
a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was a child, things were so different. You could go to, Walmart or whatever, Big K, Kmart,
Yes.
and literally the Barbie selection was like, a foot wide and, 4 feet tall. And that was clothes and everything and Ken. And Barbie was basically, you know, the same doll, but with different outfits. And I think that that played a lot on my self esteem growing up, because you play with Barbies when you're little and you think, okay, this is beautiful. This is the way I'm supposed to look.
Right.
And not everybody looks like that.
Yeah. I feel like even when I was a kid, there weren't a ton of differences in my Barbies. Like, they were all the same structure as far as what they looked like. So, in my mind as a kid, I thought, oh, well, when I get older, I'm going to have
Big,
boobs.
big boobs and, very well proportioned. And in the real world, that doesn't happen.
Right. And I'm like, it's so sad. And I feel like a lot of companies really like play on that too, and I'm like,
Absolutely.
can we just make a change? Like, this change and this difference will make the difference for the generations to come. It will change, the way that young girls look at themselves, view their bodies. I'm really glad that they're really making strides and steps in the right direction with that. And I hope that they continue to do so and continue to make those steps even bigger, because I
Absolutely.
think that what you see in your childhood really plays a large part into how you believe things about yourself as an adult.
I think the Bratz dolls helped, women with big feet and big heads.
Probably so. Probably so.
But it's not just, the toys that we play with, but it's also the shows that we
Yeah.
watched, growing up, and the shows you watched growing up, because those actors were perfect. They were basically a cookie cutter Barbie.
Right.
And so you're looking at these shows and you're thinking, I don't look like that. And
Right.
I think that puts a lot of stress on, adolescents as they're progressing in their journey.
Right. Or they have like older people play teenagers. So I feel like that gives an inaccurate depiction of
Absolutely.
what a teenager should look like, talk like, be like. And I mean, at this point in their, in your teenage years, you're trying to figure out what you want to be anyways. And what better way to turn to than looking at, TV, kids around you, toys you play with, whatever it may be, and just comparing yourself. And I feel like that is like such a large issue, is the comparison, but also not having people in there that look like your average person.
Right. And it not only plays with your emotions and the way that you feel about yourself, but it also plays with what you can do with your life. Because I have for so many years thought, I can't do anything important because I'm not beautiful. I'm not skinny. Only skinny, beautiful people are successful. And I'm learning the hard way that's not true. And that really holds yourself back.
Yeah, it 100% does.
I tease with my husband all the time that, if I couldn't have the perfect body, because I'd be unstoppable if I did, because and not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm funny and I'm smart and easy to talk to, and I feel like I have a good personality. And maybe I did that to compensate for the body I don't have, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think that you're beautiful. I would just like to preface that first. I think that you are a beautiful person through and through, inside and out. And I think that when we look around at people in different eyesight too, like we've had this conversation before where you're at the store and you're looking at someone who is a similar size to you wearing something that maybe you would be uncomfortable wearing, but you think, wow, she looks so good in that. I could never do that. But in reality, you could do that. It's just that you don't have that confidence in yourself. And that comes from years of going through different things and different trials throughout your childhood, throughout your early adolescence, where your brain was shaped to believe these certain things about your body. And then the media, friends, whatever it may be, also shaping your eyes around what your body should be. So now in your mind, you're thinking, oh, well, if I'm not this, then I'm not good enough. But in reality, you are good enough.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
So tell me, what was your early years like, maybe coming into being a teenager with your parents? In fact, actually, let's talk a little bit about your parents and your background because I think that that might give us a good picture of why your life was a little bit, maybe even more different than some.
Right. My father was a conservative Pentecostal preacher the majority of my life. My mother was raised in a very conservative home. So it was a struggle to deal with my own insecurities and then the conservatism that was in my home growing up.
Yeah.
And being a preacher's daughter, and yes, we're all bad. The preacher's kids are always the worst, but that's because we play with the deacon's children. So
Yeah.
just kidding, just kidding. Um, but you're put on a pedestal, especially I think more so in conservative churches. You have to set the example for all of the other children or teenagers or young adults.
Right, because you're the pastor's kid.
So it's even harder when you don't feel comfortable in your own body that everyone is looking at you.
Mm-hmm. And they're looking to you too, like if you mess up, if you do good, whatever it may be, they are watching.
Right. It's completely about optics, I feel like.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish that on any child growing up. Not that my parents were horrible people. I loved my dad so much. And he really practiced what he preached and ministered about. And I think he could have been a lot more supportive than what he was, but just things held him back.
Did you feel that you were able to come to them with what your fears were about your body and what your concerns were as far as like?
Absolutely not. I remember you talked about like your first period in your last podcast. And I remember I started mine on an Easter Sunday and I had my beautiful Easter dress on and I had no idea. I didn't know until we were leaving church and my aunt said something to me. And then my aunt basically had a very brief discussion about what was going on. My mother didn't. And it was okay with me because I was not comfortable in any shape or form having a conversation about that with her.
Right.
The only bad side of that is I had no idea what was going on, and I assumed it was a one-time thing. I had no idea this was going to happen to me every month.
Right.
So I was never so shocked when the next month it happened again.
Did you and your mom ever have a conversation about it after that point?
She would try to have a conversation with me, but it made me so uncomfortable that it was not an in-depth conversation.
Right. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that y'all did not have period talk. You most definitely probably did not have sex talk with your parents, probably rather than
definitely
just don't do it.
Definitely not my dad. And my mother's favorite thing is don't date anyone that you wouldn't marry.
Yeah.
And don't have sex before marriage, which I strongly disagree with now. I think that's a huge thing. And I believe a lot of people disregard the importance of sex in a relationship. So you wouldn't go out and buy a car really unseen or undriven because you don't know what that's going to be like. And not that I'm saying that you're buying a relationship, but just using that as an analogy, you wouldn't go buy a car without driving it. And I really think a lot of problems in relationships are because people are not sexually compatible, or they're afraid to tell their partner what they love and what they enjoy,
Right.
and what they don't.
I agree with that. I think that's a major issue for sure. I've heard a lot of clients say that they're scared to talk to their husbands, or, that's a major fear. It's a scary topic. And again, I think that a lot of that dates back to that it's always been a scary topic because,
Right.
people, I feel like this whole premise of like, don't get pregnant when you're a teenager has scared every single parent into, okay, don't have sex at all
Right.
because that's how we solve the problem. But instead, I feel like we should really be leaning in and teaching our children about one, safety, two, that sexuality doesn't have to be a bad nor a negative thing. And I feel like when we do that, when we have those hard conversations, we open the door for our children to be able to talk to us, be able to trust us, be able to lean into us, and feel that safety net there.
Right.
And I think that that could make all the difference in the world. And I think that could have potentially made a difference for you in your life, in your sexuality. I think, it would have been definitely hard for them to have those type of conversations given the religious background. But I remember so clearly, you're my mom, so she was my grandmother. She told me once, she said, when you have sex, it's the most painful thing in the whole entire world you'll go through. When you finally decide to sleep with someone, and, I was just like, why is that the advice that we are giving? And so I was curious to know if any of that was advice that she had given you, or maybe like,
Oh, absolutely. And I remember her saying, well, the first time you have sex, you're going to pass this big, hairy blood thing and you're going to be bleeding like crazy. So I was all freaked out. The first time you have sex, it's very uncomfortable anyway because don't really know what you're doing
right.
or what's going to happen. And then you have these horror stories of what's going to happen afterwards. And you're thinking, I'm going to be so embarrassed. And so, yeah, some of those things that she said, and I have no idea why she said those or where she got that information at.
Yeah, maybe it's like a fear tactic of like, well, maybe if I scare her into it, then she won't do it.
Right. And then my solution for, I guess scaring you when you were a younger teenager was having another baby and you helped with her. So I was like, yes, that's birth control.
That's birth control. How do you feel like coming into your early teens? So I know we haven't really hit on this conversation much together, but do you feel like when you started to become sexually active or became sexual just in general, do you feel like you had to maybe keep that from your parents, hiding that part of yourself?
Absolutely. My first husband, we lived together for a while, which I tell my girls, there's a lot of conservative people out there that's like, you shouldn't live together, you shouldn't be shacking up. And I hate that term, but you don't know somebody until you lived with them.
That's very true.
And I feel like that you should live together for a minimum of 6 to 8 months before you even get engaged.
Yeah.
So that you could see, how you work as a team and how you accomplish things.
Right.
And so my parents were strictly against that. And in fact, when we would go to visit them, he had to sleep in this room at the church and I had to sleep at their house because it was very taboo. We couldn't stay together because we were not married.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that I blame them for me making that gigantic, huge mistake. But at the same time, I'm not sure that I would have gotten married to my first husband had they not done that.
Yeah.
And made me feel so guilty. They made me feel like I was like the worst person in the world because I was shacking up with somebody.
Right. When in reality, you were living your life trying to make the best decision for yourself.
Right.
And I mean, you shouldn't feel that way.
Right.
You shouldn't feel so shamed because of a decision that you've decided to make.
Right. Right.
I feel like that's a major issue for sure. And so, another question for you on the same topic. Sorry.
I will add, my first husband introduced me to like pornography stuff. The VHS tapes. That was the big thing back then.
Was that the first time you'd ever seen it?
That was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And it was like very overwhelming to me. And another thing was back then, you didn't have all of the avenues for pornography if you were into that. So it was very strictly, basically live Barbie dolls having sex.
Right.
And my first husband was like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And basically, like, trying to teach me how to be good in the bedroom. And I'm like, yeah, if you pay me as much as you're paying these actors, then I'll do whatever you want.
Right.
But yeah, I'm no.
It's not for you. It's not for
Right,
you.
right. And it was very uncomfortable. And he actually added a lot to my body dysmorphia. Is that right? Is that how you
Yep.
say that? Um, because he was so wrapped up into porn and not Playgirl, sorry, Playboy, Hustler magazines, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But I did have a problem with the fact that when we would have any sexual relations, that he would always look at a magazine. So it made me feel horrible about myself because I don't look like those people. So I felt like he needed to look at that to be with me.
Right. And that, I'm sure, can cause some serious body
Absolutely.
dysmorphia.
Absolutely.
I hate that. I'm sorry. That's really shitty.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think we've ever talked about that
No, we've
before.
never talked about that before. How did I not know this?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but I've come a long way. I don't feel like I really came into my own sexuality until an event happened when I was 41. And then I really came into my own and understanding my body and what I like, what I don't like. So if I can just get my brain on board with my body's not that bad, I'll be unstoppable.
All bodies are good bodies, I'm telling you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm super happy for you, though, that you were able to come into that. Do you mind sharing what made you come into that?
I don't share it a lot because a lot of people do not understand it. And I've seen like videos of people talking about it and they make it something that it's totally not. But I was diagnosed with a condition and back in March of 2013, and it's called PSAS. It's persistent sexual arousal syndrome. And no, it does not go away at all. And it doesn't care what you look like or how you feel. It's a constant thing that I have to deal with. And it's very uncomfortable a lot. It's like walking around trying to do your job or housework, and you feel like you're like on the verge of an orgasm at all times. It's very tense and overwhelming. And it took me a long time to accept that this is just what my life is.
Yeah.
And I honestly, for a couple of years there, just wanted to kill myself all the time because I was so tired of it. There was no relief. So I have gotten to where I deal with it so much better.
And so you were diagnosed at 41. Did you have symptoms prior to that, or was that when the symptoms began?
Absolutely not. I had nothing like that. It was, I remember like it was yesterday. It was like February the 21st. I remember waking up and just feeling like, at first it felt like I had like maybe a UTI, like heat. And so I went to the doctor and did the antibiotic treatment, but it didn't go away. So I wound up going to a specialist and they did a bunch of tests. And literally the nurse came in with a post-it note that had something written on it. It was folded in half. And she handed it to me like it was a secret. And she said, you need to do some research on this. This is what, the doctor really thinks is going on with you. And he doesn't treat women with this condition. He treats women with the opposite condition where they can't orgasm or feel sexual. So that affected me because it made me feel dirty, like something was wrong with me, like
Right.
I was some sort of freak.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, there was no one in our area that treated that condition. And so there was some people that treated it at like Mayo Clinic. And it wasn't even really recognized at that time in the physician's desk reference. So I think that now they've done a lot more research. But the first thing they want to do is put you on depression medicine, and there's nothing wrong with that if you need to take that. But I was otherwise very happy, and I didn't want to take medication that I didn't need because I'm afraid of that.
Yeah.
But that's another topic.
Right.
But so that was the way they wanted to treat it, and I was not okay with that. So I
Right.
had to just work through it and live with it. And still, I mean, it affects me. And some days are worse than others mentally trying to deal with it. But I deal with it so much better now.
And so you feel like this is kind of that turning point for you coming into your sexuality at this point?
Absolutely, because I wanted to try different things, and I felt very sexual.
Yeah. I mean, clearly.
And this has been going on. It's been 10 years this past February. So it's been difficult.
Yeah. I'm sure there's definitely good days and bad days.
Right. And at the time when I was diagnosed, my ex-husband was not supportive. And I was trying to find information everywhere I could find it.
Right.
And there were videos of different women on YouTube that had it, and they were talking about how they live with it. And he was watching it with me, and I thought he was watching to help be supportive. But the only comment he really made was, "Wow, does this only affect ugly women?" And that just really hurt me to my core. So that's...
What a fucking ass.
Yeah.
What a thing to say to somebody. Wow, I'm so sorry about that.
I want to think that he was just joking, or just so nervous that he didn't know what to say.
Yeah, but that's definitely not something that you say. Just period.
Right.
Just period.
But
honestly.
I've moved past it. I mean, it is what it is, and he's my ex for a reason. So
yeah,
there's that.
100% accurate.
And it's another thing with him that affected me was when I met him after we had been dating for a while. He told one of his things that always stuck in my head was, "You're not everything I want, but you're everything I need." And then later on, after the condition happened, it was like a light switch. Somebody flipped a switch on me. It wasn't a progressive thing. It just happened. I woke up one day and that's what I was dealing with. And so he was not supportive of that, but he did like the benefits of it because we would, have sex several times a day. And so I lost quite a bit of weight during that time. And then when I decided I can't deal with this relationship anymore because he's not supportive and he's very downgrading, he decided all of a sudden now I was everything he wanted.
Oh.
And, that was
convenient timing.
10 years into the relationship, I finally became everything he wanted. So, but that messed with my self-confidence.
Right. 100%. I feel like, and I was actually talking to a client about this morning, where how our relationships play so much into what we view about ourselves, because so much of our self-worth is so rooted in our belief system, our core belief system that we've had for years. So when you're in school, middle school, high school, whatever, college, and people are talking crap about you or they make subtle jokes, then those start to become subtle or in your face things that you believe about yourself. So then when you get with a partner who says something to you like that kind of solidifies that thought that you already had. So now your brain's like, okay, well, this must be true about me.
Right.
And I feel like what I'm working so hard with women about is that they can make up what they really believe about themselves in their own mind, and getting to the root cause of why you actually feel so negative about yourself and trying to basically dissect that and turn it into how you should feel about yourself, because
right.
At the end of the day, you should feel good about yourself at any size, at any weight, in any part of your life. It all really, I just feel like, dates back to everything we've just talked about when it comes to what we grow up seeing and hearing. And
right.
And then when you do get a boyfriend or a husband or a significant other that comes to you and says something negative about your appearance, and now you're just shattered over it instead of being like, that's not true.
Right.
And I feel like that's the space in which I'm trying to get to with my own self. And every day is not an easy day, but it's like, I don't want everything to be rooted in what I think I should look like. I want it to be rooted in I am beautiful, I am whole, all by myself.
Right. A thing I would like to touch on, because I've had friends of mine, make the comment that the boudoir photography is basically pornography, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to strongly disagree with that. That is not what that's about at all.
Yeah.
I am so proud of you and what you're doing for women, because you do make, firsthand experience. You do make me, me and other people feel great about the way we look and make us feel comfortable in our own skins. And it has absolutely nothing to do with pornographic images or sex. I mean, it's sexy, but come on, let's face it, there's a difference in sex and sexy.
Yes.
So I think people need to realize that. And this is a movement that I want to be a part of, because I have younger daughters and I want my daughters to feel comfortable in their own skin
Right.
and to know what they want.
Preach, seriously. I mean, I've been told 100 times that I shoot porn for a living, or I get jokes about it all the time. And I'm just like, this isn't funny. Like, what I do is serious. And
Right. It takes away from it. It totally disregards what you're actually
yeah,
doing.
it diminishes the whole movement when that's said to me, like it one pisses me off. But then I'm like, okay, well, if you are that curious, let's have some education, because this is not porn. And every single client that has ever come in my studio, we take classy, beautiful photos, and it's
Absolutely.
about the experience. It's about feeling good in your own skin at the end of the day. It's way more than just the photos. And I do believe that there are definitely photographers out there who are just in this for the photos, and that's fantastic if that is their mission and what they want out of life. I support them, stand with them, great. But for me, this is a movement. This is showing up for women and being their guide to loving themselves,
Right.
because I can't do it for them, but my goal is to guide them in that direction. And I want my sisters, to grow up and know how fucking beautiful they are.
Right.
And I feel like, especially my youngest sister, who is 13, really coming into that age of like, she's coming into her sexuality. She's becoming a grown-up girl. I can't handle
Right.
it,
Right.
dating and having boyfriends, and she's drop dead gorgeous. It makes me really emotional, honestly. She was my baby, y'all. She was my baby. But
She was birth control.
yes. But I genuinely want her to be able to love herself in such a way that she never has to question if she's beautiful, because she already knows that she is. She never has to go through those moments of, oh, sex is awful and it's the worst thing in the world for me to do and I'm going to hell if I do it.
Right.
And I feel that we need to be having these hard topics with our 13 and 14-year-olds, and we would have less teenage pregnancies. We would have less body issues, because they're not turning to that as an escape route from this fear of whatever that sexuality may be. And I think that's just, gosh, it's so important. And I think that so often we're just so scared to have these talks because these talks have never really happened.
Right.
And I mean, even I'm sitting here thinking, wow, how would I even present this to my own daughter? Because eventually we're going to have this same conversation. And I want to be very careful and cautious about how I present it to her, because I don't want to scare her. And I feel like so many of us were scared about our sexuality. I mean, that was right around the time I got super heavily involved in church and was being told that, like, you're going to hell if you do that. But then all the boys over here aren't getting chastised for all the horrible things they're fucking doing. So,
Right. And it's always, even through the years, it's acceptable, if men have more than, a handful of women that they've been with, that's acceptable. He's cool. He's a bachelor, he's enjoying life. But if women are sexually active and have multiple partners, then you're just a whore, and it
yeah.
makes you feel bad instead of embracing that you enjoy sex.
Yeah.
So, with Gabby, it's difficult because she's kids are assholes. I mean, they really are. And she's so super smart, and she's an amazing trumpet player. And so kids are always trying to take her down a notch because she is on a pedestal. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want that to sound negative, but she is. She's superior. So to make her feel bad and to bring her down, they tell her she's fat and that she's ugly because she's fat. And I wished that our society and our parents, parents would do a better job of talking to their kids about the bad things they say to each other.
Yeah.
Because it's very sad. Because she's very beautiful. She's very talented. I personally don't think that she's fat, and I hate that word. She's absolutely gorgeous.
She is. She is so gorgeous, and she has the most beautiful heart in the entire world. And I feel like what you just said, where talking to our kids about that, and I feel like literally my mission, all bodies are good bodies, is something that we should really be teaching to our children as well. All
Absolutely.
bodies are good bodies, and just because someone may look like they should belong in a movie doesn't mean that they hung the fucking moon.
Right.
It should be based on who you are as a person. It should be based on what your insides look like instead of your outsides. And unfortunately, so often we focus on what we can see, and that happens to be the outside.
And it's unfortunate because those kind of things, boys have seen that stuff growing up. So that's what they know.
Yeah.
That's what society, media, television teaches because, on TV, only the beautiful women are on there. And I have an issue with The Bachelorette and those shows because it seems to me that there are not any real women on there. And what did you say the average size of a woman is nowadays?
What do we
Like
say?
16, 18.
I think.
That's a real woman. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I meant that that's the average size.
The average woman in America.
Right. So the idea that these teenage boys are going to have the supermodel on their arm is just kind of not going to happen.
I think also just teaching them that there's so much more to a relationship and so much more
Right.
to people than what they look like. And being able to see those signs of like, okay, this is what I like in a person or what I don't like in a person, especially when choosing someone that you want to be sexually active with or whatever that may be. So, with that, what would you say you're going to do different with your 13-year-old daughter for that to make her life different, I guess?
I try to keep an open line of communication with her. That way she always feels comfortable talking to me.
Right.
And there's absolutely no discussion that's off the table. And I know a lot of parents kind of cringe, when their children want to talk about certain topics, but you better talk to them because if you don't talk to them and you don't give them some information and support, they're going to get it from somewhere else.
Right. And it's probably going to be some misleading information.
Right. Absolutely. And so I just want to have that, like I had with you, just an open line of communication. There were some times when you were a teenager that you asked me things that I wasn't prepared to answer. And my response is not really comfortable with answering that right now. Let me get back to you. But I believe I always did get back to you and we had that discussion.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to answer something off the cuff if you're not comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to take your time.
Don't just leave it on the table and never address it again because your child has come to you and they want your advice. And at certain points, they don't ask for your advice anymore. So,
yeah,
it just helps you build that relationship with them.
I think that's amazing. And I think that's going to make a world of difference for her in growing up for her too, because she's going to know that it's okay to be sexual. It's okay to, in fact, it's normal to want to be that way, And I think that if we had these hard topics, again, I feel like kids would grow up and they would have a grasp on what their sexuality looks like. So instead of waiting until you're in your 30s or 40s to find that, you can find that in your 20s, and the earlier the better, I feel like, to find yourself, because then you can enjoy more of your life, and it's so damn short,
Yes, it is. It is. I want her to enjoy life. And even when she's an adult, I want her to feel comfortable coming to talk to me or to you because you were that, mother figure to her when she was little, even though you were her sister, you helped take care of her. And I'm forever grateful for that. But I just want her to have that open line of communication with us and know that it's safe.
Yeah.
And if she has questions about her sexuality, that it's safe to talk about that. It's not taboo.
Creating a safe space is so important.
And I want her to have knowledge too. about what she likes and what she doesn't, and how to tell her partner what she likes and what she doesn't. That way she can enjoy her life. I feel like so many times people are like, oh, sex is not that important in marriage. And what I would say to those people is you're not having the right kind of sex, because it is very important. And for men, it's a physical release, it's a physical thing, and they need it. I feel like with women, it is physical too, but it's also an emotional um, thing, and that you feel love. The intimacy is more important than the physical act for women.
Yeah.
But the physical act is more important, I feel like, for most men. And I don't mean to stereotype, but that's just my own opinion and what I've dealt with in my relationships.
I could definitely see that.
And for the longest time, I felt guilty because I've had several partners, and I don't feel guilty about that anymore.
You shouldn't.
Because, I mean, that's the way society was when I was growing up. If you had more than a handful of partners or even one partner, well, you're a whore, or you're a slut. And I don't feel that way anymore.
Right.
I've learned a lot about what I like and what I don't like.
I think it's super important to know what you like and what you don't like, and to voice that to your partner, just like you were saying, teaching her how to go about talking to her partner about this, and how it shouldn't be an awkward conversation. Like, yes, once you rip that Band-Aid at first, it's going to feel real weird. But at the end of the day, I think people are actually way more open to talking about these things. It's just who's going to rip the Band-Aid first, you know?
Right.
And I think that having those early conversations with her, when she does want to voice that opinion, she's going to think back to that moment and say, okay, this is okay.
Right.
Instead of you saying, nope, can't have sex, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm like, do you know that everybody whose parents says that to them, those are the people going out and having sex? Because let's be honest, teenagers want to rebel against you. And
Right.
if they want to have sex, they're going to have sex. So instead of making them feel like shit about it, let's educate them.
Right.
Because it's going to happen. It is inevitable that it is going to happen.
And when you tell somebody they can't do something, they're damn sure going to do it, especially teenagers. And I would rather for her to feel like she can come and talk to me, just like with you, rather than trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
No, I don't have all the answers, and I can't tell you what you like and what feels good to you.
Right.
But at least you can have an open discussion about it.
It's scary waters by yourself.
It is. Absolutely. I remember the first time I had sex, I had no idea, because of my background and the way I was raised. I had no idea what a penis looked like. And so I was like, it was the funniest looking thing. I'm sorry, guys, but that appendage of your body is hilarious. And all I could think was an elephant trunk. So it was hilarious to me. And I laughed, and that was not a very good vibe with that whole situation.
You definitely have a can't hide your face problem.
Right. Absolutely. I cannot fake my face cannot fake it. I can tell you all day long, how I feel about something, but I cannot lie, because my face is going to tell the truth.
But my face will tell you the truth.
Absolutely. And you come by that honest.
Yes, I do come by that very honest.
But I like you said, I think it's really important with your teenagers, especially your teenagers, is to keep that open line of communication so that they can talk to you.
I agree.
So they don't just get their information off YouTube or wherever.
Pornhub, because let's be real freaking honest, that is not an accurate depiction of what sex should be like. And I'm going to need people to start talking to their sons and stop telling them to just watch that to figure it out.
Because it's unrealistic.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, if you pay somebody enough, they'll do anything, and you shouldn't if you're not comfortable with that. And I don't know. Just talk to your teenagers and give them the support. And if they ask you a question that you're uncomfortable with, say, hey, I need a little bit of time to think about it.
Yeah.
But go back to it.
Did you ever ask your mom any uncomfortable questions?
No. I was never comfortable. I never felt safe talking to her about any of that stuff. Yeah. Ever. So I had to figure it out on my own.
And they were the only people either one of them had ever been with, right? Your parents?
As far as I know.
As far as you know. So I feel like that definitely set a standard for you in your brain, which probably, would you say that it affected the way you felt about yourself after you would be with someone? Because in your makeup and what they've told you is that you're not supposed to sleep with anyone or sexually be with anyone. So,
well, it's the same. I've been married before, and they would make me feel horrible because I was divorced, and they had lived in a loveless marriage, slept in separate bedrooms, did not have a good intimate relationship my entire life.
Yeah.
And they were abusive, mentally, emotionally, physically abusive to each other. And so they did not have a good relationship in that area.
So you also grew up not seeing even a loving relationship on top
Right.
of not knowing your sexuality, not having those difficult conversations.
Right. That's a whole other discussion too, how that messes up your children. But that's another discussion for another time.
Yes.
But yeah, I never felt comfortable with that. And I often wonder, because both my parents are deceased now, that maybe, nobody had that discussion with them.
Yeah. I
And they
mean,
didn't
it's very
know.
likely. I mean, at that point, when were they teenagers? That would have been the
When my dad was born in 51, my mom was born in 54. I was a product of basically a teenage couple. So I didn't feel like a daughter ever. I felt like a sister to them more so.
yeah,
I
so we're
felt
talking 70s.
right.
They were
I was
together.
born in 71. Don't do the math. I'm 29.
Age is a beautiful thing, okay? I'm going to need you
Age
to.
is just a number though,
It
honestly,
is.
because I know a lot of people that are in their 30s that are more like 70-year-olds. So I feel like I've come into myself and I really do feel like I'm in, 29, 30.
Yeah,
I wished I knew then what I know now.
right.
I would have enjoyed my life so much more.
I feel like it's very important to enjoy your life. I'm glad
But
that you're doing that now.
yeah. And I do. I have an amazing, wonderful husband who was very supportive, and I love him to death. And we're able to talk about everything and anything, and it makes our relationship amazing.
Yeah.
And I never knew that I could have that. So I was very fortunate. And we're going on 10 years since we met. And we got married in 2017, and I still feel like honeymooners constantly. It's just
Y'all really are so
amazing.
cute.
I love him so much.
Y'all really are so cute. So made for each other,
Knock on
honestly.
wood, because I don't want anything to change.
Don't change. Don't ever change. We love you.
Right.
Um, so I guess we'll just leave them with this. I have another question for you.
Okay.
So we've talked about your parents, how that looked on in your home life. But as far as like your life outside of your home, your friendships, going to school, did you feel like that was a place where you were more open with your sexuality, or was that also closed off due to your home life?
It was also closed off due to my home life because everybody knew I was the preacher's daughter.
Right, even in school.
And so a lot of boys felt uncomfortable with that. So I didn't date a lot. It was awkward, when I was in high school. Instead of worrying about that sort of thing, I really got into working and making my own money and
Right.
being independent. So we didn't talk a lot about it. I had a couple of friends that we talked about it, but none of us knew what we were doing. It was like we were all wandering around in a dark room looking for the light switch and not understanding, really what we were talking about.
Yeah. I feel like then too, it was even way more taboo than it is now. Whereas I feel
Absolutely.
like the generation coming up now has way more of a grasp due to like what's on our TVs, what's on our phones, the
Right.
conversations that you hear more publicly. But I feel like then, I mean, granted, I wasn't alive then, but I would just venture to say that that time period would have been difficult to grow up and trying to find your sexuality because you probably, I mean, y'all were in the South too, so
Right.
having just that women are a certain way, period. I'm sure it was very secretive, very hush hush.
It was. It was. And we were trying to figure it out because my friends weren't comfortable talking with their parents. It would be absolute rarity to find someone that could talk to their parents about sexual stuff
Yeah. And
back
then I
in my
feel like
day.
that definitely affected the generations. I mean, their parents didn't talk to them, and then those kids probably don't talk to their kids. So like it's
Right.
just continually going in a cycle. I feel like at some point we got to break this cycle. Like sex is not a horrible thing. It is not a bad thing. And not even just sex, but like your sexuality isn't a bad thing.
No.
Loving your body and knowing what you want with your body is beautiful and empowering. not even just for sex, but like to know that you can wear something and be confident and sexy in it, that's part of your sexuality as well. And
Absolutely.
I feel like that is so important to note.
Well, I don't know. This is coming from my wonderful husband, but, and I've heard other men say this, that being sexy is not about your body or necessarily what you're wearing, it's about your attitude.
Hmm.
So, and he's said before, like 90% attitude and confidence. So, and a lot of women are missing that confidence because we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, we are our own worst critics through and through. I mean, and I work with, women on a daily basis. I hear what they're saying about themselves, squeezing their skin, and talking bad about their bodies. And I'm just like, woman, you are beautiful. Let me show you.
Right,
Let me show
right,
you just how amazing you are. And I feel like that is what I'm doing. I'm changing their confidence, their perception on their own body. And once they can see it that way, it's literally, it's like a light switch moment,
right.
like, holy shit, that's me.
And I also feel like we really are harder on ourselves. And this was something that you brought to my attention quite a while ago, and I didn't even think of it that way. But we all deal with insecurities with our
100%.
bodies and with
Mhm.
anything really, but especially with our bodies. Because when I look at you, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're beautiful. And I would give anything to look like you. And I look at myself and I'm like, I'm overweight and I'm working on that. And, it used to irritate me because you could eat all day long and you never gained any weight. And I never realized till you told me how frustrating that was for you.
Yeah.
And I think that most people wouldn't even think about that.
No, I have clients all the time tell me that they're like, "Oh,
I don't look like
I don't
you.
look like you. I can't do that. I'm not like you. Or they'll be like, "You're perfect." And I'm just like sitting here like, "Wow, I got my own set of insecurities too."
Right. Everybody has that. And I never realized that or respected that
Yeah.
position. I just thought that the only people that could feel the way I feel are people that are overweight.
Yeah. And it's
And that's not
crazy
true.
because there's like a whole, like, I would say, group of women, really, like a whole stew of us who are underweight. I mean, my doctor wants me to gain literally 25 more pounds in the next couple of months.
I wish I could just give it to you.
And it's like impossible. And so when people are like, "Oh, you should eat a burger," it's like, "Oh, it's because I'm not thick enough." You know?
Right.
"Oh, I'm not
And you do
beautiful."
eat. I mean, you do eat and you just don't gain weight.
Yeah.
And I can not eat and see a burger on TV and gain 10 pounds. So just
But we have
every
our own set of issues. They just happen to
right,
be opposite. Like I have trouble finding clothes because they don't make clothes small enough for me.
right.
I have
And
to shop in the kids section. That's embarrassing all in itself because I mean, this makeup in my mind is that, "Oh, you look like a child." Oh, well, guess who has to shop in the kids section for leggings
right,
because they don't have them in my size.
right. And the designers nowadays for people that are heavier, I feel like they're missing the boat on what those women want too. Because I'm very self-conscious about my arms. And so I don't want these t-shirts that hit way up high on my arm because it accentuates something I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're missing the boat on what heavier women like. And yeah, come on. We want the whole shirt, Target. We don't want half of it.
Swear. We want the whole shirt. Sometimes we want a crop moment, but sometimes we just want our whole shirt back. Thank you.
And I think sometimes we get jealous of what other people wear because deep down inside, we want to wear that stuff and feel as confident as they do.
Yeah, honestly, I think that is very true. I have found myself being jealous over someone else who has, I'm president of the Itty Bitty Titty Committee, if you didn't know. But I see women with small boobs and I see them like wearing a suit jacket with no bra underneath and they're so confident and they look so good. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't look like that if I tried to do that. But then I have to check myself in that moment. Like, no, bitch, you would look that fucking good if you took your mind off of thinking that it looks so bad. And literally, it's that mind switch of like, I did this in the studio last week. I was looking at myself in the mirror and I thought, okay, work, you're looking good, you're looking good. And then all of a sudden in my mind was flooding me with negative thoughts about my body. And in a split second, I went from thinking you look good to, oh, your hair, oh, your eyebrows, your glasses, your earrings. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking I look like shit. And then I'm like, no, shut up. This is not how we talk about ourselves. Because
Right.
what you say about yourself matters. What you feed your mind about yourself 100% matters.
Absolutely. Your mind has a lot to do with
Yes.
everything in your body.
Yes. And even sometimes I'm like sitting there and I think, God, I don't believe this, but I'm going to keep saying it because shit, it's true. And I'm retraining my brain to know that.
You know, we were talking about, you know, when I was growing up in the, you know, late 70s, early 80s, you know, it was like a big thing on soap operas and nighttime soaps, especially where women did not have big boobs.
I
They were
know.
small
You were
and
telling me that. I didn't believe
they
it.
rocked that, you know, they would wear no bras. And I'm like that, looking back on that, and I'm like, where did we get to the point where only voluptuous women are beautiful? And, you know, I'm
Society.
all for it. If you're down with getting augmentation or an enhancement, then you should. If that's going to make you feel better, then you should. But I also believe that you shouldn't have to do something to your body so that other people will accept you.
Yeah, I agree. You
Because
should do it for
I
you.
think that acceptance should come from the person that you are inside.
Yeah. And it can't come from anywhere else, honestly. Like, even if you do get that done and it wasn't with the intention of, like, I'm doing this for me and you're doing it for other people, you're still not going to be happy.
You're not going to like something about it. And
Yeah.
that's the same way, like with weight, you know, losing weight. I've lost like 30 pounds over the last year and a half. And to me, when I look in the mirror, I still see me at the other weight.
Right.
I do not see me that I've lost weight.
Yeah. And there's so many women that have told me the same thing. I mean, it is so much in your mind.
So all I've got to say is don't let age or your body stop you from joining this movement and getting the session done. Do the damn thing, because you're going to feel great about it and you're going to love yourself.
I love this. I love this so much. Thank you so much for coming on here and being a part of the podcast. I can't wait to have
Absolutely.
you back. I feel like we have so many other topics we could delve into that just even came off of this. So
I am so proud of you and the movement and the amazing photographer that you are. And you're such a great hype person. You made me feel so comfortable
thank you.
yesterday when we did or day before yesterday when we did my shoot.
Thank you so much.
Do it. Schedule it.
Yes.
You won't be sorry. You won't
Join the
regret it.
movement, guys. Our socials are always linked in our bio. And that is it for today, guys. And we will see you back next week. Thank you for watching the Beautifully Bare podcast.